a lot of people that so we just saw like in 2020, Xi Jinping like did I think back in 2013 he started to work on the zero poverty alleviation, and so how exactly did China do that, and how did the CPP manage to lift 850 million people out of poverty? How did like the zero, poverty alleviation, how did that work, and what ways like does the system work to help people get out of poverty? Like how did it help the poor people in the villages, the old people who struggle? How does it exactly?
Right. So when they're talking about elimination of extreme poverty, talking about people like $1 a day, right? That's like the definition given by UN. So in China, first this is by a rapid urbanization. So China built new cities. Like when I came to the States in 1990, I stopped by my dad's hometown, which back then was a typical Chinese town. The highest building was like maybe like 3 stories high, right? What was this Bank of China, very high building in the center of the town? That was the highest building. But when I returned in 2000, because my sister decided to hold a wedding in China, I realized a whole new city sprung up. They got stadiums, they got sports centers, they got shopping malls. Like I was like, wow, and it was. I mean, like every 10 years I would revisit China. It's like I'm visiting a whole brand new country, because everything from physical infrastructure to landscapes just change, like, and also people move. Because one of the things I noticed when I went to my dad's hometown, I was trying to scratch in my head, where do people come to populate this new city? And then I hear them speaking like Sichuanese, which is from my mother's hometown region where I grew up. And I was like, oh, okay, so all these Chinese people they're getting off the farms now. They're getting off the farm into these new built cities, and that itself lift a lot of people off. Out. Before when you're working, a lot of the rural people, because it's they may have land, they may have land to work on, whatever, but they don't get a lot of cash. and one of the advantage of getting them into factories, into the cities, is the productivity suddenly increase. And this was happening across the country at a gigantic level. But Chinese government also played very active, not just building up the which in the Western press call them ghost cities, right?
Kyle, the sound coming from your end is acting very strange. It's acting like a bit buzzy.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's probably my internet. I'm in the middle of the jungle. Unfortunately, the fire optics. I'm basically using of like mobile signal to talk to you. Am I okay now?
You're still chopping a bit. Do you want to rejoin and come back?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Let me see if that would. Yeah, let me just studio and come back. Okay, right back.
So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, he's explaining to us why China, liberating a lot of people out of poverty. For the CPP to achieve that is a very big achievement. A lot of Western countries didn't achieve that. I really think, the West could learn a lot from that. But it really doesn't help when a lot of the Western countries just, especially when you look at the healthcare industry in America and how the healthcare system is not very good. Like, I know a lot of conservatives will say that free healthcare is a thing that is bad. But by the way, Carl is back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that delay. Here we go. Welcome back, Carl.
Hi, I'm back. I was talking about the incredible I was talking about the urbanization in China. But the way the Chinese bureaucracy works is that the central government will issue a directive, and then they will evaluate the local cadres based on the metrics on how well they accomplish those goals. So, for example, in the 1990s and early 2000s, the goals that were set, the directive sent down to the local cadre is really just grow the economy, right? By whatever means necessary. And but what Xi Jinping has done when he takes term, he made a directive about lifting people out of poverty, as defined, the extreme poverty as defined by United Nations. This said, like, you gotta have to come up with a plan, whether it's multi-year or whatever, to make sure the poverty level of your county is reduced. And they have teams to check on these cadres' work. So, like, there was a great documentary actually that was done in cooperation with PBS, actually the American public television, which later they had to ban from airing from in United States because it made the CPC look good. But the documentary is available on YouTube. People can go find it. It's a documentary on how China actually carry out the poverty alleviation process. So first there's the central directive from the central government to tell the local cadres, okay, here's your here's your quota. You got to reduce the number of people in your jurisdiction that were living on like $1 a day. Reduce that to 0 by the state, by given this how many years by the state. And then they will send in like college students who are kind of volunteers who will come to this county, like, or the village level individually to check, to verify if these cadres are actually doing their job, so they can't just first and report like, okay, poverty has been eradicated. So they actually had a second layer of a verification to make sure that's done. So this is kind of the way how they were able to lift 800 million, which is not a small size number, out of extreme poverty by, I think it was 2020. I forgot the date, but this is how they made it. I do highly recommend the documentary. People can find it on YouTube, the China poverty and poverty alleviation documentary. Goes even more details.
Mm-hmm. I think, it's incredible because when you look at like Western countries, when you look at America's homeless rate right now and the healthcare system, I mean, it's just collapsing. All of that money that goes towards like pointless wars, because of the bankers that run the United States, the military industrial complex. Speaking of that, Kyle, what would you say when it comes to China? What would you like? Okay, so also a lot of Westerners will say China is an authoritarian state. People have no rights. You're not allowed to vote. You're not allowed to do this. But yet at the same time, people like you who support the CPP will say China does, well, actually, and people, they say that people, who are Muslims and Christians can't practice their religion, otherwise they'll be arrested. Like, there's a huge Christianity, termination that's happening in China right now. When you look at that, but at the same time, a lot of CPP supporters say, that people in China can practice their religion. There's a lot of ethnicities in China. A lot of these ethnicities will go into what's the meeting every year? Or what's it called? At the main building. What is that called again?
The National People's Congress.
Yeah, Congress, like the National People's Congress. I was watching this video by Li Jingjing, and she was talking about how, like, the CNN said, oh, it's so strict, but yet you can see people going from different parts of China, different districts of China, where they're all from different parts of life, where they're African, Muslim, and stuff. And, you actually, when you look at the videos, that are coming out in that place where they so-called, Zhenzhen, where they pretty much say, oh, the Muslim genocide, but yet a lot of Christians and Muslims are being able to practice their rights, and there's actually more mosques in China than there is than, United States. And they say there's no freedom of speech in China. And they also say there's no elections in China too. When you look at that, what is your opinions to those people who say all those things, that China's a dictatorship, but yet at the same time, with what the facts I just said about the religious freedom that people do actually have, What is your opinions towards that, and what do you say to people who say that China's an authoritarian state and there's no freedom of speech? What do you say to people like that?
A lot of these people talking on the internet, they're talking about China as this, as if China is on the move, because many of these people have moved to China. I'll say seeing is believing. I traveled extensively in 20, when I visited my family. I took this, all going all southern China, also with Myanmar, and active people. I see mosques. I see Muslim
Kyle, you might want to.
Yeah.
Kyle, you might want to leave again. The thing's being buzzy. You might want to come out.
Okay. You think that will fix it? Okay.
Yeah. So, like Carl was saying, everybody, a lot of people in China do have religious rights. So, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, so sorry about Carl's internet. It is a bit buzzy, but it is what it is. A lot of people in China do, have religious rights. There is a lot of, and ladies and gentlemen, he's back. So sorry about that. So sorry about. Is that annoying you, Carl?
No, it's fine. It's fine. My son just joined me. He wants to conversation. Yeah. Okay, Kaishin. Okay. And
that's all good.
Yeah,
come in if you want.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it about again? I think I was talking about traveling.
We were talking about the religious rights in China.
Yeah. Seeing is believing, because I travel extensively China in 2019. See mosque. I see people attending mosque. I see a halal restaurant, where Muslims go to eat, and I see Christians. Every time I visit, I see Christians, from here Shanghai to all the way on the Myanmar border. Christians and Christian churches and people going to worship. So I mean, like, for these people who are talking, like they actually know what they're. A lot of their knowledge is so-called received wisdom they receive from the mainstream media, right? And you have to understand, mainstream media is not bringing a balanced view of China. What I like to say is, China just like, it's not like paradise, utopia. China, like every other country, it has its goods and bad. And China is society 1.4 billion people. China is like a giant elephant. You know the historical story about blind man field elephants. All of us are kind of blind man feeling up the to figure out what the elephant looks like. But the Western media is zoom and focus on elephant's ass.
I know.
Ass. So that's the only.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
That's the only thing you see, and your only perspective of the elephant is ass, and you have a very short view of what an elephant really is. And this is what to say about people, who all these preconceived notions, what their media tell them to think and what to believe. Just by being in China, you will see this is completely bogus. Because there was a where I think he was working for the Times or the Telegraph. This back then when there was correspondence. Well, his brother came to it, and his man, this China is like what you wrote about first. And British journalists didn't take this criticism, well. He actually wrote a whole article about no. See, my brother is just a tourist. He just saw like a very. He doesn't understand China like the way I do. It's like no. Your brother says something very straightforward. He is getting a very distorted picture of China from reading your columns, and like his eyes is telling him a completely different stories. I mean, so I highly suggest people, to go to China for yourself, to see for yourself, experience it for yourself, and before you pass a judgment, right? So I talk about China because that's what I know about. And I know it's not being accurately portrayed in the Western media, right? I'm not. I don't have the confidence to go talk about a whole different country which I have not even been to, have not even experienced firsthand, right? And but this is just, I think, it is a particular conceit in the Western society that everybody felt like they're expert just because they read something in the newspapers or something.
I know it is absolutely ridiculous. So the political system in China, a lot of people say, of course, you can't pick the president of China. And a lot of, the Western media outlets would say, oh, it's fascism and all that. But yet there are elections that happen in local levels. So explain to me, Carl, explain to me your knowledge of the Chinese political system. How does the Chinese president get elected? How does it work with its nationalistics? Tell me the historic meaning behind how it was made, and tell me what elections that do happen in China.
So many people probably don't even know this in the West, that China have direct elections at the village level since 1980s. All village chiefs are directly elected. All the villagers gather together and then they vote on who is going to be their village chief. But that direct election did not extend to the township level or the county level. They tried to experiment with that in the 1980s. They were originally they tried to, because China likes to do things incrementally. That's why when they first did the market reform, they created these special economic zones on the coast, like Shenzhen, Zhuhai, etc., that were given special rights. So the idea is, okay, if it doesn't work, at least we have these places cordoned off from the rest of the mainland. But so they did experiment with different type of elections. In the end, they decided to keep the direct election just at the village level. So because the direct election doesn't scale up, but I would say Chinese government structure, in a way, it's harder to understand it from like a Western perspective, because the Chinese bureaucracy, the current bureaucracy by the CPC, is really built on top of a much older ancient backbone of the Confucianist bureaucracy that had functioned in China for thousands of years. And what CPC did, it's just giving a modern upgrade. They downloaded they downloaded a little bit Marxism, they downloaded a little bit of the modern party structure, and they upgraded it. But it's still largely a meritocratic system, because if you look at Xi Jinping, he had to start at the bottom. He served first as a chief at the village level, and then he was promoted up the ranks from the village level to township level to county level, then finally to city level and prefecture level, and then finally provincial level. So for him to get to where he is today, leader of all of China, he has done his dues at every single level of the bureaucracy. So he actually can understand how the country is run at the very like grassroots level. And like that, this is not the experience of your average national leader in the West nowadays. If you look at people, the past U.S. president, right? Look at Obama before he started his senator career. He was he was a community organizer in Chicago, right? And then, or if you look at Trump, right? What's his qualification? He was a real estate developer, right? And TV personality, and so you. This is why what you end up is in the West. We end up with these elite who are completely cut off from everyday daily reality of common people. Especially like I talk about context of U.S. because that's what I know best. I mean, the American elite right now, they're completely cut off from the everyday realities of working class Americans, because they're not from there. I mean, even people who are from working class background, even like Clinton's, right? By the time he rise up through the hierarchy, he was totally co-opted and bought off and became part of the system.
Especially, George Bush, George Bush and his how his family, also funded Hitler, their connections, the Rothschild, the Rockefellers, Hillary's connections to bloodlines,
You got dynasties. You got the Bush dynasties.
Trump was a bit different. Okay, I'm not a Trump fan. I used to be, but he definitely, didn't do enough to stop the military industrial complex. He definitely continued the war in Yemen and Somalia But at the end of the day, the problem is of the United States. They'll say that China's corrupt, but yet the corporations in China are controlled by the government. But the problem is in the United States, the country has been controlled by bankers ever since the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. You probably heard of that, Creature on Jekyll Island. Recommend the audience go read that book by Graham. You've got the Act of 1871, which led to the Act of 1913, where the Constitution was overridden and the United States became a corporation. The idea of the United States being a sovereign nation, being a constitutional republic, died in 1913. Yeah, you can argue America still was, a democracy in 1980 and 1990, but it was never meant to be an empire. After 2001, though, when that happened, the Patriot Act came in, more civilian, that was it. After 2001, any democracy the United States had just went down the toilet. All United States is now, it's just a country that's controlled by corporation, controlled by elitists. Look, maybe Donald Trump was against it, but he didn't do enough. He wasn't, like a Ron Paul. Like Ron Paul would have been amazing if he had won. He's not like a George Washington. He's not an Andrew Jackson. He didn't do enough to end the Federal Reserve. He didn't do enough, to end the true enemies. And it's just, it's so ridiculous, Carl, So because if you compared like China and Russia, China and Russia's government cares about their people. It's just like the Swedish and Norway, well, maybe it's just like Sweden and Norway, countries like Sweden and Norway and Iceland, governments who actually care about their fucking people, sorry, pardon my language, I don't swear, like Rwanda, Nigeria, Algeria, Morocco, countries that give a damn about their people, who are actually trying, Australia and New Zealand we used to be like that, but now we've gone, under control of the World Economic Forum, but it's just...
Well, Australia, you got coup. You have the Whitland who got whacked who got removed essentially by the Americans.
I didn't know that. But yeah, like you were saying, like you're mentioning about China, comparing it to the United States, how the United States is controlled by, like you were mentioning.
Yeah, the thing is, let's face it. I think all Americans can agree, our elite don't care about us. The American elite don't care about a common American people, right? Like, so what's U.S. Poverty Alleviation scheme? It's to get the poor to join the military. That's a poverty alleviation.
Absolutely. Just think of this for a minute. If the United States went back to its old roots, it got rid of the Federal Reserve, it got rid of the military-industrial complex, and it spent more money on healthcare and like this, it would, no offense to China, but it is richer than China. It would be ahead of every country. It would be ahead of every country. And it's such a shame because, like, by the way, I've got nothing against the American people. I bring in all different types of people on my show. I've had lovely conversations with people, whether they're conservative, whether they're liberal. I love American people. Same with Chinese people. I think they're great. I think they're wonderful. But it's not the United States people, though. Because look, I will be honest. There are a lot of, socialists and Marxists who will say, oh, the American people are racist. But not really. America is a pretty diverse country. America does have racist problems, of course. But it is a very diverse country, and people do go outside China. China's a very diverse country. New Zealand's a very diverse country. Russia's a very diverse. It's not the people in the United States are the problem. It's the bankers. It's the elites who are the problem. The government of the United States is just shit. It doesn't care about its people, especially right now when you look what's going on in Hawaii. Have you seen what's been going on in Hawaii right now? Like where people, are being refused, are not being able to, like, what was it? Sorry, I didn't pay much attention to that.
they get $700. That's it. That's the extent of federal government aid to Hawaii. Everybody on Maui gets $700. In the meantime, so there's and if you total the sum of the money they're spending, everybody's $700. It
Mm.
comes up to about 100 million, whereas United States is sending what 200 billions to Ukraine.
My
I mean,
God.
like, I mean, where? So
Literally
who do they?
giving it, okay, literally the United States, it would claim it's like for democracy. The United States government will claim it's for democracy, but yet they're giving it to Ukraine, which is army
But
as
but but, but
you go
it's not given. It's not given to Ukrainian people. It's actually given to the
going to the
American
military
military
industrial
industrial
complex, and
complex.
it's going to
Yes.
the neo-Nazis, the Azar Kretalian, who have been torturing the
Yep.
people in Donetsk, Donbass, all that, stuff, 2014. It's just absolutely insane. People can't realize that. And Ukraine is not even winning. They're losing. They're like
Yep.
Russia is just overwhelming. And I feel bad for the Ukrainian people, but at the end of the day, it's like, oh, it's so crazy, Carl.
Yeah, it is. I mean for US it was all designed. That was not a bug. That's a feature because the whole deal was to use Ukrainian as pawns, as proxies to fight the Russians to the last Ukrainians. United States, they don't care about the average Ukrainian people. They just thought a way. Okay, we don't have to get our hands dirty directly. We just found this proxy war. We'll continue to bleed Russia. What happened to Ukraine itself? Who cares? We are getting, we're getting the palms greased. All our sponsors in the military-industrial complex, everybody is getting a fat check, fat contract. So that's all they care about, and that this is why kind of this very shameful reaction.
Kyle, do you watch Abby Martin? Do you know Abby Martin?
Yes, yes, yes. She's great.
She's
She's great.
look, I tell you this, I don't agree with everything Abby Martin says, but I love her video on the Trump deception, the oil, America's his brilliant video. Don't agree with everything, but bright. And also Truth Stream Media. To your audience, I recommend that. You may not agree with it, but they're right about a lot of things. There's a girl called Real Graceful. She's fantastic too. Also, Ron Paul's another one. Just the stories you just hear, like about, it's just so messed up, Carl. And anyways, like you're mentioning about the democracy in China and stuff like that and all that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, China is again, it's a different society. I don't think U.S. should impose its own value system on on others because in U.S. we claim there's when we're talking about universal values, we're really just talking about American values. It's like that movie Metal Straight Jacket when the sergeant says yeah, I'm going to use a slur. Sorry. When the sergeant says, inside every gook's body, there's an American dying to burst out. I mean, this is how U.S. conduct its foreign policy. It's to make everybody a piece of
You know what?
America. And
Do you know
this,
what I
yeah.
think the founding fathers would do? The founding fathers would look at that and say, "That's not America. That's not what we stand for. You guys, this is imperialism. America was basically born to fight against imperialism. The true America would be against imperialism. But ever since the Act of 1913, when the bankers came, you get what I mean? It's just absolutely messed up. But like you were saying about China being a democracy,
I think it goes. I think the America descent into empire goes a little bit further than that because we had the Spanish-American War, and that got
yeah.
U.S. land having a colony in the Philippines and the Cuba,
Yeah.
Dominican Republic,
Unfortunately,
Puerto Rico, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so that was an evolving process. It's not a hard cutoff line. But I mean, my thing is what China, Russia, and the BRICS country are proposing is look, you are fine in America, you are fine the way you are, just keep it to yourself, right? Like let us run our own country to see how we fit. People should respect sovereignty. This is something that American elite don't respect anymore because they're running an empire. They don't believe in sovereignty. But
Yeah.
people in the BRICS country are saying, like, look, we need to have mutual respect for sovereignty, have mutual respect, and just as long as I think that's really the way that should the world should function. Each country, whatever happens to China, what happens in Russia, that's not really a average Joe America's problem. What America should focus on is to invest on its own infrastructure, invest on its own education,
Yeah.
to make America a better place. I mean, that's what government should do, right? Which they're not doing.